Alright, how's it going everyone? 01 here. It's been a while, right?
Surely there is someone out there who would benefit from our aid right now.
I'm sure there is someone out there who would benefit from our aid right now. Anyways, I can't remember the last time that I actually did a video. I know it's been a couple of months, but I've been playing this Necromancer guy, well, lady here, and just kind of seeing if I can work out a Thorns build that actually works. I think I've got one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the gear real quick, go over the skills, and then we're going to run a level 70 Greater Rift, which I have actually never done before solo, so it'll be new and interesting for all of us, I'm sure. Alright, so without further ado, so our weapon is going to be Trag'Ul's Corroded Fang. The reason why we want this is for the nice little bonus that we get to our damage. We are not using Grim Scythe, so that first 100% chance to apply curse, we don't really need that. And then we're using a gem in here for Thorns as well. Now, as you can see, it's not ancient, so my gear is actually kind of crappy. So you don't have to have, perfect gear in order for this build to work for you. Our shield, we're going to be using Lidless Wall. We're going to be... I'll go over the stats later. Okay, so then we're going to be using 5 pieces of the Grace of Inarius set. Instead of the chest piece, we'll be running Aquila Quiris, or however you say that word. It's a very strange word. For our amulets, we'll be using Wisdom of Kalan. For one of our rings, we'll be using Lornell's Sunstone. We will also be using Crisbin's Sentence. We will be using Sanguinary of Embraces for that. And for our belt, we'll be using Dainty's Binding. Now, as you can see, we've got Amethyst gemmed for everything. This gives us 23% life. This gives us Vitality. This gives us Vitality. So basically, we're just trying to pump up our Vitality as high as we can possibly go, as well as our life, because for this build to work, you need to take and be able to take a lot of damage. So you can see right now, my life is at 1.4 million. My toughness is at 95 million right now. Recovery 3.2 million. These will actually increase quite a bit as I go through and start doing the rift. Okay. So for most of these, I tried getting intelligence. Intelligence not so much for the damage, but for the all res that you get from it. Then I'm getting vitality and everything, basically trying to boost up my defense as much as possible. So you can see that one there. For our gloves, same basic thing, intelligence, vitality, armor. Critical hit chance you don't really need for this build. I mean, it's useful, but I don't know, you don't really need it here. So if this was a perfect roll, I would have something else there. For this, intelligence, vitality, I would re-roll the Death Nova, but as you can see, I had to... I re-rolled the secondary here to give me a little bit of golden health pickup. The reason why we want that is you can kind of see this thing right here. This is our auras that we're going to be using, and the larger our golden health pickup radius is, the larger our aura. So that will actually help you out as we move on through here. For this, intelligence fit, all res, thorns. Something about this is we will not be using primary resource at all, so we will always be at 100%, which means you get a constant 50% damage reduction just by having this on there. For this, intelligence, vitality, perfect roll would have physical damage percentage instead of the attack speed, and then we've got the thorns damage, and then the important thing is the maximum stacks of bone armor by 5. It's very important for this build just because it helps build up your defense. For this, physical skills, percentage, intelligence, vitality, life per hit is useful. Pretty much any kind of regeneration is useful for this build. Then also thorns damage here. Let's see, for our belt, we've got intelligence, vitality, all res, percent life. This is nearly a perfect setup roll for this. The only thing I would replace is the monster kills grant 239 experience, and I would go with Thorns on this instead. Did I go over these? Okay, so intelligence, armor, life per hit. For our secondary, once again, Thorns would be perfect, but as you can see, I had to reroll just to get the socket in there. Same thing on this one. This you don't really need the damage too much, the first stat there. Intelligence, vitality is good, but I would more prefer to have some sort of recovery on here instead of the damage buff. Simply because we're going off of Thorns damage, not weapon damage. For our pants, we have Thorns, Intelligence, Vitality. Siphon Blood damage, I would reroll that for something else. I am using Siphon Blood for this build, but I mean, you could use any of the primary stats and it should work relatively well for you. And then of course, get some Thorns for our secondaries, and also the 7662 life after each kill is good for your recovery as well. For our boots, we want Intelligence, Vitality. I don't know if we need armor. Maybe I can reroll that. Let's see. What other options do we have? Yeah, I would probably go for the regeneration instead of the armor. But, you know, it doesn't really matter too much, so we'll just roll with what I got. For this, Intelligence, Vitality, maximum essence doesn't really matter too much for this because once again we're not using it. If you do modify this build and you use that one scythe that gives you extra, like bonus damage per your maximum essence, then maybe. But for this, I mean, it's not really needed. But I did need the vitality on here just for the extra Thorns damage, so that's why I didn't reroll the maximum essence. And for our lidless wall, good thing about this shield and why you want to use it is because it gives you the physical skills percentage there. And then intelligence, percent life. Instead of the crit chance, I probably would go with vitality, just because it'll help you with your defense and being able to stay alive. And then, of course, your Thorns damage. And then the secondary reducing damage from range attacks is actually pretty good, so I'm going to keep that on there. So that's pretty much it for that. Let's go to our cube. Alright, and then inside here, we're using Spear of Gyro.
I'm not as bad as I look. Really. Stop walking away!
They talk way too much. Alright, anyways, Spear of Gyro is what makes this build work. This right here, depending on how many people you have cursed, will seriously boost your Thorns damage to give you... I mean, you can see it in mine, but I've gotten 250 billion, Thorns damage in a group. So, I mean, depending on how many enemies you have cursed, this can do a lot of damage. We're going to do Heart of Iron, of course, and then also Ring of Royal Grandeur, and we need that so that way we can put this into the chest slot. Alright, for our moves, I am using Blood Rush as my right-click, just to get away from some of the explosions and stuff like that, and to get around a little bit faster. I'm using Siphon Blood Power Shift, just because I like the fact that the damage is increased 10% each time damage is dealt. I'm not sure if that translates to Thorns damage, but I'm hoping it does, and so whenever you're up against the Greater Rift bosses, I think this actually helps you kind of take them down a little bit faster. We are using Devouring Aura, and then this is just to help us with our life regeneration, so for every corpse that you suck up, I guess, it'll heal you a little bit, which is very useful for this build. We're using Decrepify Wither, and then what we're doing for this is just to mitigate damage from our enemies, just to kind of boost our survivability a little bit. We're using Aura of Frailty. We like this because it means that we do not have to kill a monster 100%. We can just kill them 85% and they will die. So very useful, especially as you get into the higher refs. We are using Bone Armor, Vengeful Armaments. This one you can use pretty much any of them. You don't want to use the one that stuns, so Dislocation. And that's because if enemies are stunned, they're not attacking you. If they're not attacking you, you're not doing your Thorns damage. Limited immunity could be useful if you wanted it. When you see how this build kind of works, you'll see that it probably won't make all that much difference here. I mean, you could maybe use that if you want to move around a little bit faster. I would advise against this one just because 20% health that's like a solid number there. It's 20%. But with this build, once you see how it works, you'll see that the lower that you get in health, the more beefy you actually get as far as defense goes. And then for our skills, we're using standalone. We're not using any minions for this build,
Please take me
particularly
with you.
just so we can have this right here.
Terribly dull.
This is just going to increase our armor, and then because we have no minions, it'll be 100% increase in armor. We're using Eternal Torment. This just means that if you curse someone and you kind of move around for a little bit and you're kind of making all the enemies move in a certain direction or whatever, this isn't going to fade. Like, your curses aren't going to fade. We're using Swift Harvesting. This is just to get the attack speed up for your primary skills here, so this one right here. And then we're also using Spreading Malediction, and that just gives us a little bit of a damage boost for our Thorns damage based on however many enemies are afflicted by our curses. Something I didn't go over is the gems here. So we're using Bane of the Stricken, and this is another reason why we want the primary skills to go fast, because every attack you make increases the damage it takes from your attacks. And I think this also corresponds to Thorns damage, so as you're doing more damage with your Siphon Blood, it should also, I think, boost your Thorns damage as well. We are using Bane of the Trapped. This is just a straight damage increase for your Thorns. Right now it's at 31.5%. And then we're also using Boyarski's Chip, kind of required for any kind of a Thorns build. Alright, so I think that is pretty much it for that. I'm going to use up some of these things. What do I need? Boots? Let's go with boots. That should be good. And that's just to reduce my blood shards, so... Nope. And I'm just looking for ancients here. The normal stuff here I don't really care too much about, but... Alright, so we are all repaired. Now it's time to do our level 70 rift. So, good luck to me. Hopefully this will work. I made it through level 69 with a few minutes to spare, so hopefully this one won't be too bad. Alright, so first thing you want to do is proc your bone armor, and then you also want to start putting out your Decrepify. And the reason why you want to put out your Decrepify is because it'll increase your defense. So as you can see right now, I'm at 854 million toughness. And that's just from dealing with these guys here. Alright, now with this build, you're going to be doing a lot of hurting. Just because you need to have as many people cursed as possible just to boost up your damage here. So when you have, elites that are slow and, they're not really attacking you too much, especially if it's like a ranged guy. Let me turn this down a little bit. Alright. So... okay. Another thing is you want to make sure that you keep your bone armor up at all times. That should be pretty obvious. Now as you're going through here, you see I'm just kind of walking along and just kind of cursing and moving. Basically, I'm herding everyone into a pretty big group, as well as getting... because now they're all around... you can see that it's pretty much it clears the group that's around you with your Thorns damage. Alright, now we have 3 sets of elites here. Something you'll notice is that our toughness is going up as we take more damage, as well as our recovery. Looks like we already killed one group. Now, there's a lot of crap on the ground. I mean, we're taking, pretty much a lot of damage, but as you can see, we're at 2 billion toughness now. So this build is very, very beefy, and you shouldn't have any issue staying alive. Alright, so we want to boost our Thorns damage a little bit more, so we're going to kind of herd these guys all along here. And then let's see if we can get these guys down. Come on. These guys are being very dumb. Okay, so that was a 160 billion hit. Now, these guys are annoying as hell because they run away, and so you gotta chase after them, and they don't do too much direct damage to you, so you don't really get a chance to use your thorns too much. And that's pretty much the same with any kind of ranged bosses here. So you don't want to waste too much time with them. They'll follow you, so just kind of keep moving along. There he goes, he just fucking runs away again. Alright, so make sure that he's still following. If you see any other guys around, make sure that you curse them with your Decrepify, so I'm hitting number 2 right now. And that just, as long as you have someone with the Decrepify curse, you're going to be taking a lot less damage. And for this build, it's kind of a requirement. There you go, we finally died. Alright, now we can move along. Now, when you are going through here, you want to make sure that these guys don't get too far away from you, because the curses will fade if they go off the screen. I don't know how far off the screen they have to be, but I've noticed it. And then I don't know if that's just like a visual thing and they're actually still cursed, which is still boosting your Thorns damage, or not, but I don't know. Just try to keep everything on the screen, herd them along, try to get big groups, and then just kind of make sure that you're in the center of them, so that way when they do hit you and the Sanguinary Vambraces proc, you'll get just a bunch of dead guys like that one right there. The Power Pylon will help you a lot. The Shield Pylon also will help you a lot. The reduced, or the removing of the costs or whatever, that pylon doesn't really help you too much because we're not really using anything that has a cost to it. Yeah, so we're just kind of moving through here. There we go. Got an elite group. Now, unfortunately, these are a ranged elite group, so we just kind of want to make sure that we surround ourselves with melee guys that are actually causing our Thorns damage to proc. And then hopefully they'll get caught in the Sanguinary Vambraces. Alright. Come on. Are you dead yet? Alright. Ideally, you want to finish this and get to the Greater Rift with about a quarter of your total time left. If you notice that things are starting to take too long and you're losing time, then just kind of just move on. Try to grab them, bring them with you if you can, but you don't want to waste too much time because you do need to get to the Greater Rift boss with a good amount of time, because it is going to take a while to bring them down. With our damage as it is right now, our single target damage is pretty poor. When we have multiple targets, that's when we really build up our Thorns damage, but until we get there, we just... I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to stay alive right now. You want to try to stay out of the explosions. Believe it or not, you are actually at your most vulnerable when you are at full health, because that is when both your recovery and your defense is the lowest. So if you get caught in some of those explosions and they like take all of your health away in one hit, then you die. But if it's something that's like damage over time, then usually you can stand in it and it doesn't do too much. Alright, I'm pretty sure that this is a dead end, so we're gonna head back over this way. Do, 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 do. Now, our Aura of Frailty is automatically applying a curse to whoever is immediately around us. The Aura of Decrepify is kind of grabbing those, like if they're ranged, like these skeleton archers right here. It's to curse those guys so that you can still buff your Thorns damage without having to like go and chase them down. So I'm just kind of moving along. Just make sure that you keep your bone armor up, and then just curse everything you can see. You don't have to worry too much about doing damage to any of these guys, because as you can see, as they're following me and hitting me, they're also proccing my Thorns damage, which is killing them. So really you just kind of have to make your way through here. Ooh, elite pack. Nice. Alright. Okay, come on. Okay, there's 2 down. Can we get him down? There we go. Alright. And then the good thing about the curses is they don't actually cost anything to cast them, so you can just pretty much spam them all over the place. You don't have to worry about, you know, your Aquila Aquarius defense buff going away. Alright, it looks like we're looking okay for time right now. This is going to be a level 70 Greater Rift boss, so I don't know how long it's actually going to take to bring him down. And then also there are a few Greater Rift bosses that are very difficult to take down with this build, and those are the ones that are mostly range damage, and they don't do too much in the way of melee. So, I mean, you can see that I'm taking these guys' charge like head on, and it's not killing me, so this is a very, very beefy spec. These guys are taking a very long time to die, though, unfortunately. Come on. Alright, we'll just drag them along. I think we're wasting too much time here. Hey, let me go. Jeez. Alright, so we're just kind of moving along here, trying to buff our Thorns damage as much as we can. And then we just kind of double back and take care of some of these guys, you know, a little bit at a time. Just like that. And then we have our Rift Guardian. Alright, so we have about a quarter of our time left. Now, for these guys, all you have to do is make sure that you get Decrepify on them once, and then all you have to do is hold down your left click, and wow, I was not expecting that. Okay. So this just got a lot more complicated, because now my bone armor is like empty. So this is going to be kind of interesting, I think. Alright. Now, another bad thing is if you do die on a Greater Rift boss like I did, you have to rebuild all of your bone armor up one thing at a time, which is really shitty. I don't know if I'm going to be able to clear this in time, simply because I died. But I mean, he is almost at a quarter, so maybe it's not so bad. I don't know, maybe I'll do it, maybe not. The only thing is you actually have to take damage in order to do damage, and if your defense is really low, then it makes things very complicated. And that's another reason why I'm going with the Siphon Blood, simply because as you use it, it actually helps to heal you, so you boost your recovery a little bit. Alright, we're at about 9 stacks, so I think I can take a little bit more damage. You can see that he's below half health now. Ooh, I need to watch out for that one, I think. Alright, we're at 10 stacks. Need to make sure this guy isn't hitting me. Another thing that might have kind of attributed to the whole thing is I was at full health when he hit me with that attack. And like I said, when you're at full health, you also have the lowest defense. So that might have been what caused the one hit. Fuck. Ugh. This is not ideal. I got him! Alright! Yeah! Wow, okay. Yeah, so don't do what I just did. If you're up against the Greater Rift boss, don't die. Because that's just really, really shitty. But hey, there we have it. I'm gonna grab up all this stuff. Oh, you know what I didn't go over? I didn't go over my Paragon points. Let's see. Do I want to boost that, or do I want to boost this? We'll boost this. Alright, so level 70 Paragon completed. Or, sorry, level 70 Greater Rift completed. Getting a little ahead of myself here. So, yeah. Honestly, I think what did it is, let me see, the Bane of the Trapped, increasing the damage the more attacks I do against them, because as you could see, as the fight kind of drew on, he was taking more and more Thorns damage, and I think that might be kind of what attributed to that. So, Bane of the Stricken, useful for this build. And then, yeah. So, let's complete this, see how many... I just got 4 levels? Yeah, 4 levels. It's not too bad. As I've been kind of working my way up, I've been getting like 3 and 4 levels like every single Greater Rift as I move up to 70, so it's been interesting. So, right, Paragon points. Alright, so for our first ones here, max out your movement speed first, and then everything else you put into Vitality. Don't worry about maximum essence, don't worry about intelligence, everything you put into Vitality just to boost that Thorns damage as much as possible. For this, start with your critical hit damage and your critical hit chance. Your Thorns damage can crit, so that's why this is important, but I don't know, I think just making your Sanguinary Vambraces proc is probably going to do more damage unless, I mean, you can crit on that too, but for just your normal Thorns damage, I don't think this is really going to help you too much as you get higher into the rifts. But yeah, so crit, then go for attack speed. Attack speed once again for your primary to make sure that you're doing as much damage as you can as quickly as possible for that. For your defense, all res first, and then armor second, and then life third. Life regeneration is going to be useful as you get farther down into the Greater Rifts, but for this, because I'm not doing like the 80s and the 90s and all that crazy crap, I don't really need this too much yet. So as you're building up your Paragon points, just kind of work these out, and then you should get there should be pretty good after that. For your utility, you want to do your life per hit first, then your area damage, and then after this, resource cost reduction, because you're not actually using any resources, is kind of useless. Gold fine also kind of useless for this as well. So life per hit and area damage are going to be your most important ones here. So this build can be done at low Paragon levels. I was doing 50s and 60 Greater Rifts at, I think, 200. And then also I was also trying to work out what gear I needed to, so that probably attributed to it as well. For this though, I think I've got a pretty good setup right here. So I think as I level up and I start, upgrading this stuff to, your ancient stuff, and then now that I've completed a level 70 Greater Rift, the primal stuff, if I ever find any, I think that'll actually carry me through to the higher rifts. So, there you go. Necromancer Thorns build, good for solo pushing. Yeah. Hope you enjoyed it. And, yeah. I will see you next video. Alright? Alright. See ya.